How's it going? I'm Anthony, and these are stories of my life. For those of you just joining us for the first time, these videos are a cognitive therapy tool for me. I've taken some head injuries over the years, my memory's been failing me, and the doctors have suggested I make these videos to preserve the memories I still have, as well as inspire some of you all who are involved in these events to provide me with details I may have lost or otherwise remind me of events I've completely forgotten. In which case, then I can either remake an old video with the new details like I am now, or make a whole new video for you and kind of go from there. So, I'm sure you get the idea. At any rate, building off of the events of the last video, if you haven't seen it, check it out. In the last video, I talked about how my friend Nathan almost shot me in the face with his dad's handgun. I was blind, blah, blah, blah. And what was interesting about that, and how it segues into this video, is that my father was going to give me a pellet rifle that Christmas. That would have been Christmas of 1991. And he was a real big stickler on gun safety. And I had been shooting ever since I was little, so I knew and I understood gun safety. But then this whole thing happens with Nathan, so I ended up telling my dad, you know what, if you don't want to give me the pellet rifle, you don't have to. Well, he did. He eventually ended up giving me the pellet rifle for Christmas. That was Christmas 91. And then I turned 14 in January of 1992. So I was a 14-year-old freshman, now halfway through my freshman year in 1992. So, and was I mature enough to have gotten that pellet rifle? No, I'll tell you that right now, I was not. You know, granted, I made sure I knew everything about it, you know, how it worked, how it functioned, and I even wanted to know how hard it shot. So it was one of those ones that could shoot BBs or pellets. And the more times you pumped it up, the more powerful it was. And I will admit, I did shoot myself on a couple of occasions just because I wanted to see how powerful it would be, you know, with a single pump. You know, I tested it with, a variety of different objects to see how powerful a single pump was, and then eventually set it up to where I had a jacket on and I shot it at my arm. And, you know, a single pump with this thing wasn't that hard. It probably felt like maybe a paintball, when a paintball hits you, left a decent welt, and that was about it. You know, whether it was a BB or a pellet. And so, now granted, once you pumped it twice, that changed things. You know, second pump, third pump, fourth pump, you know, that changed things. So then it got even significantly more powerful. I think once you got past 7 pumps, and forget about it. It was all the same after that. But anyway, the reason why I bring that up is I will say that I did shoot, you know, a couple of my friends with it, just to be an asshole, which I was, you know. But it was all in fun, and I only pumped it once, and you know, they had a jacket on or something, and you know, one of those is Joe, and I know he's watching this right now, thinking, "You asshole, I remember that," blah blah blah. But anyway, so I had this pellet rifle now, and Jim had gotten one also, and his looked like a Vietnam era M16. Mine looked just like some kind of green hunting rifle. His had iron sights, mine had the scope. And what was funny is he always liked using the scope, and I always liked using the iron sights. And so we'd always switch a lot with our rifles, and you know, so it was kind of funny that way. But anyway, with this pellet rifle, Jim and I used to go shooting birds and lizards and any other creature we could find. And I don't know, it was always fun to shoot a bird off of a line and watch it fall, and you know, see the damage you did and whatever else. And you know, I look back on that now and I realize that, you know, it was bad, and I feel bad because I'm an animal lover, and you know, I wish I wouldn't have done any of that. But you know, it was what I did back then. I was angry, full of hatred, didn't care about death, blah blah blah. So you know, that's how it went. But anyway, so with these pellet rifles now, one time Jim and I, we were out at these, God, I can't think of the name of the mountain now, but anyway, there's a mountain, small mountain, right by where my dad used to do some landscaping work out at a commercial area right near Grand Terrace-ish. And Jim and I would go out and we'd just shoot things in our pellet rifle, go hiking up to this water tower that was up there, and you just kind of do that. And one day, him and I were shooting birds at these little orange groves that were right there, and I happened to see this hawk resting on a tree, and I sighted up on it, getting ready to shoot it. But as I was looking at it through my scope, I changed my mind, pulled it down. Just, why didn't you shoot it? Nah, I wasn't going to shoot a hawk, you know. And then a few minutes later, we end up finding ourselves closer to the road. And we look across the street, and there's this commercial building. It's got these giant doors, glass just beaming at us in the sunlight. And I sight in on it and fire. And you can see through the scope this little circular peck mark that was in the window from where my BB hit it. I was like, oh, Jim, check it out. So I showed it to Jim. And Jim looks at it through the scope and he laughs about it. So he fires one from his, and I can see where the peck mark is. And we just keep dotting up these two windows. And we're both sitting there firing, and you can see all these little circular dings hitting this windows. And finally, and actually they were doors, you know, giant doors. Finally, him and I both fired at the same time. He was shooting at the right when I was shooting at the left. And both of them just came down like freaking waterfall. Like the glass just came down. We were like, oh crap, you know, and then all of a sudden these alarms start blaring, and you know, and Jim and I just packed up and ran completely away from it. We ran towards the mountain as fast as we could. We knew the cops were going to be coming soon because it's a commercial building, alarms going on. So we get back towards the mountain, and we found like a drainage something, like a tube, whatever, but we ended up throwing our rifles into that and then throwing a couple rocks over it so it looked inconspicuous, and then turned around and started walking back to the scene of the crime like, you know, we had just got done with a hike, you know, because we're sweating and whatever else because, you know, we'd been running. So we're walking back like we had just went up the mountain and went to the water tower and whatever else. And then all of a sudden, you can see cop cars come flying up, and this police helicopter finally comes flying overhead and sees us. And we look up at the police helicopter, and he's looking down at us, and we start waving at it like, hey, look, police helicopter, you know, and the guy kind of waves, but then, you know, he kind of circles around us, you know, gets our descriptions, obviously. Finally, a cop comes over and meets up with us. He's like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, oh, nothing. We're just walking. We went up to the mountain up there and went up by the water tower and farting around, you know. Why, what's up? He's like, did you see any other kids around here or anything? Like, no. I think actually we may have heard a few, you know, around the other side of the hill. They were kind of running off that way. Like, did they have any pellet rifles or anything like that? I'm like, I wasn't really paying attention. Maybe. I don't know. They were carrying something, but I couldn't tell what it was. And, you know, I guess the way we looked and how casual we were about our story, and we acted like we had no freaking clue what was going on. The cops totally bought our story and went looking for whatever other kids there were. And so we just casually walked back over to where my dad was doing landscape work and worked with him a little bit and, you know, helped him with whatever else we could there, and until the cops finally cleared the scene, and then we went back, got our rifles, and brought them back through and back in my dad's truck. And we got away with that one. I think my dad knew that we had done something stupid. I think he even knew what it was, because, I mean, he had to hear the alarm. But my dad was also one of those people that, you know, if you do something stupid and you get caught, guess what? That's on you. If you get away with it, hey, whatever. Good for you for being sneaky, you know. But it was good and bad, you know. Anyway, that's how that was. But I think the most significant thing that came up with my pellet rifle was one day I was at my house. And even though I was 14 years old, I still had a fair amount of toys that I had saved. And those, the most significantly, were G.I. Joes. I used to love my G.I. Joe toys. Even, you know, growing up, that was the toy I loved the most. So I still had these little plastic figures. They're probably like, yay big. The old school G.I. Joes, the small ones, not the big Barbie-ass looking ones that they have now. And I used to play with them all the time. You know, make little wars and whatever else on the floor of my dad's apartment. And that was what I would do. And then finally one day I realized, I'm like, God, you're a kid. You know, you're acting like a kid. You're 14 years old. You're in high school, and you're sitting here playing with toys, you know, G.I. Joes. And I used to take all kinds of heat from people that I was this immature little brat. And I mean, being small as I was didn't help anymore either. But finally one day I thought about it, and I said, you know, as much as I love these toys, I've got to grow up. I've got to grow up. I got to let the boy die. I got to let that boy inside of me die. He's got to go, because he's causing me more problems than I need, and I've got to grow up. So one day I packed up all of my G.I. Joes, all of my toys, and I took them out to that same field that I just mentioned with where I was at with Jim, and I lined them all up one by one. Just set them all in one line like a shooting gallery. Backed up with my rifle and sighted in on them. I remember my dad asking me about it. He said, "You sure you want to do this?" And I said, "No, I don't. I love these toys." He said, "Well, why are you doing it?" I said, "Dad, it's time to grow up." I said, "This is how I know I'll grow up." He said, "Then just stop playing with them." I said, "I can't. As long as I have these toys, I will keep playing with them like I was some little child. I have to physically destroy them in order for me not to have them anymore, in order for me not to do that." I said, "It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. But I've got to do it. It's got to be me. I've got to do it. I can't just throw them away." He says, "Okay. I understand." So he took a step back, but he stayed right there. And sure enough, every one of those, I loaded up, sighted in, pow, shoot it. And if you hit the G.I. Joe right here, the whole thing exploded, like he just blew to bits. Every now and then I'd hit one of them in the head and it knocked the head off or an arm off or something. But every one of them, I shot every single one, and they all just went to pieces. And it hurt. It hurt. It sucked. I was in tears, but I'll tell you what, that was the most significant decision that I had made in my entire young life. You know, it's always said that the first big decision a child makes on their own is when they graduate high school, what they decide to do next, whether that's join the military or, you know, go off to college or do nothing. That's still a decision also. But this was the first time I had really made a big decision. I mean, I guess I could argue that my first decision was when I decided to leave my mom and go move in with my dad. You know, I could say that, I guess. But this one registered more. This one was my first, okay, I've got to grow up and do something with myself decision. And yeah, it was a hard one. Silly as it sounds, it was hard. But I look back on it. I always remember the significance of me needing to take my own things that I felt were bad and destroy them myself, so I could not get to them again. I could not do it. I had to do something permanent to ensure that that change occurred and destroy those toys. And I've taken that mentality, you know, over the years as I grew up, that sometimes that's what it requires. You know, sometimes you got to do something permanent. Sometimes you got to burn that bridge to ensure that you never cross it again, that you never go back. And sometimes you just got to let the fire from the bridges you burn light the way ahead of you. And that's what I did. You know, at that point, I no longer had toys to play with. I could no longer act like a child. It was time to grow up. It was time to grow up. So take what lesson you want from this. You know, hopefully it does something for you. But that was a significant moment in my life. That was when I made that decision. So anyway, I appreciate you watching. Have a good one.